Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. I understand new dad viz, man. I'm sure I'm sure your head's all over the place.
It's unprecedented for me. So each day is a new adventure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to have you on. Mostly in part because I have heard you're actually a real NBA sicko.
Yeah, I have some insane thoughts.
Well, that's very exciting. We could definitely talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
But firstly, I know, Young Jesus has a new album coming out in a couple of weeks. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that and kind of like the process in writing this album and maybe, what has differed from previous albums or just kind of the process a little bit.
Yeah, it was I really what happened was I got my partner was filming this show for a long time, and she was in Iceland to film part of it. And we hadn't seen each other for like 3 or 4 months at the time. And we had decided like, oh, I was going to come visit in like April a couple of years ago. And I went out right as I was leaving. She got COVID, and I was like, well, I'm still coming. And I was really, um, what do you had a lot of hubris, I guess. I was like, um, I'd been working in landscaping for a while, and I'd been like eating really well and all this stuff. I was on like a major self-improvement zone.
Mhm.
That was how I was using the time of her being away. I was like, I'm gonna be like the best person ever. And so I was like, I'm not gonna get sick. Like I'm the strongest I've ever been in my life. Like, so whatever. And so I went there. And of course I got like everybody on the crew got sick over time. The person that got the sickest was me by
Mhm.
far. And so I really got taken out for like 5, 6 days, and then I slowly recovered and then came back home to LA.
Was
And
this
then
like peak pandemic or was this like a little bit after?
a little bit after.
Yeah.
And then I came back to LA. I went to work. And my first day back at work, I got a fever again. And then I was sick to my stomach for like 10 days. And in the middle of that, I watched that documentary about Kanye West, Genius, and it like changed my life.
Okay.
And uh, because I was so like weak and receptive, and he said this thing at this benefit for his mom's charity, I think, that was like, when I say I'm the best rapper alive, I mean I believe I'm the best rapper alive, and I think you should believe the same thing about yourself. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to start just believing in myself as a musician and not
Mhm.
be like embarrassed and aw shucks about the music I make. And so once I got out of that illness, I just wrote a new thing that I'd always wanted to write about that I was afraid to write about. And I wrote a song like every day for 14 days. And then I had all these songs and I recorded them with a bunch of musicians that I know and love. And that's the Fool. That's the album.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a story. And I mean, I feel like do you feel that all your music kind of has a unique like every album has its own kind of unique story like that?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, like, music for me is a like a spiritual journey as much as it is is, I don't know, aesthetic one, but it's
Sure.
mostly a spiritual journey. Um, and so it tends to have like there just tend to be these like serendipitous or epic experiences that lead me back to loving and being involved in music. It's not as much like, I'm gonna make an album that sounds like this. It's like, I have no choice other than to make this album right now because God or something is pointing me in that direction, and it would be foolish to say no.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, it was
it's
like I had sent an email years ago to Saddle Creek, the label that I'm
Yeah.
on, because I wanted to meet this drummer named Milford Graves, and didn't get a response for years and years. Then Milford died, and I got an email from this guy Shazad Ismaili, who was like, "Hello, young Jesus. I am Shazad. I've been very sick. I want to talk to you about Milford Graves." I was like, I don't know this guy. I don't care.
Yeah.
No. And
Feels
somehow
like
he
a
found my
very like almost
number.
ominous email to get.
Yeah. No, like punctuation, no capitalization. Um, and I was like, no, I'm not talking to this guy. They found my number and he was like, I'm in LA. Can I meet you? And I said, yeah, come over for lunch. And we really got along. And he's the person who produced a lot of this record. And we
Cool.
became like really fast, close friends. And yeah, just one of those like people. Like
Yeah.
he asked to come work on Milford's last recording with him, and I was like, oh, I'm doing this new job, it's landscaping. And he was like, oh, the studio I run needs a garden, I'll hire you to put that in. And have you played with any musicians this year? And I said, just this one woman, Sarah Beth Tomberlin. And he said, oh, well, she's recording her album at my studio in 2 weeks, so why don't you come sit in? And so it's just the crazy zone. It
Yeah.
was undeniable.
Awesome. And is
Yeah.
it isn't it it's there's something funny about addressing an email, dear young Jesus.
Yes, it
It's
really is. Yeah, but I love
cool.
it.
Yeah, definitely. And so you're originally from Chicago, right?
I'm originally from Glencoe, north
Okay,
suburb.
yeah. Yep. I'm from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So
Right on.
um and I guess, as you're in LA now, right? You're in
Yes.
LA now? Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So I guess the what is the kind of transformation that, Young Jesus as uh I guess it's a band because you have different kind of musicians play with you throughout time, right? I guess what has that evolution been? Because it's been over 10 years at this point.
Gosh, yeah, it's been like 15 years almost. I don't know. It's like the transition from being a 20-year-old to a 35-year-old. It's like so crazy. I
Yeah,
mean,
right. That's a loaded
so,
question, yeah.
yeah, but um, I think the thing, it's an interesting question because I think this album, The Fool, is the first one that's like really deeply connected to the first Young Jesus albums,
Oh, cool.
which were written in Glencoe and then in
Hmm.
Ukrainian Village, where I was living in Rogers Park. And um, so there are these characters, David and Eloise, that are mentioned in The Fool. And those were sort of the first characters I had used in songwriting in this Young
Okay.
Jesus album called Home. Um, and I think for a lot of people, when you're trying to become an adult, you kind of run away from your early 20s, maybe.
Hmm.
And this album is like the first time I'm like integrating, I think, all of my different musical lives into a album and into a songwriting process. And I don't feel like shame about it. I feel
Sure.
interest and excitement and like appreciation for 20-year-old, young Jesus, where
Hmm.
it's me and Pete and Cody and Sean and in our, parents' basements drinking Miller High Life and ripping cigs and writing songs on acoustic guitars.
Tale as old as time.
Yep.
um Well, and I do feel like, you do approach a lot of your music as almost like a theatrical sense. Is there a purposeful nature in that and kind of the way you tell stories in music? Because it does feel like, I hate to use the term concept album, but there is a lot of like theatrical storytelling in that sense.
I love telling stories.
Yeah.
Um, those early Young Jesus records and then this record are really story oriented. And that was just one of the main things that I did when I sat down
Mhm.
was I would think, I just want to write a first line to a song that is like deeply captivating and try to be brave with that, not try to
Sure.
ease into a song, but like put myself and the listener like in a place that's full of something, whatever it is. Um, and these just were stories. I didn't even want to write a stories album. They just,
Mhm.
there's that tune Rabbit where it's like a rabbit and a hawk and their journey sort of parallels these people. And that's told with so much more, that image is so much more profound than saying exactly what happened to these people. When you just talk about a hawk chasing after a rabbit and then dropping it onto the ground and the rabbit's kind of bloodied and it walks away. And um, I don't know why they're stories, but they are. And
Yeah. Well,
uh,
is there are there any kind of musicians that kind of inspired you to get in that direction? Like, the first thing I think of is, your honestly Saddle Creek bandmate Tim Casher tends to do that kind of
yeah,
storytelling a lot.
yeah. I mean, I loved those albums a lot. I still do. I haven't
Yeah.
been listening to them as much lately because I haven't been listening to music as much. But
Try
uh,
and divert so it's kind of like you're not trying to like borrow from direct sources
yeah,
or anything.
for sure. This is going to sound strange, but I kept thinking while I was writing the album, I just kept thinking Bob Dylan and Janis Joplin. And I never have listened to Bob Dylan or Janis Joplin conscious. Like, of course, I've heard it like
Right.
on the radio or whatever or in a movie, but I've never put on a record.
You've never sat down with a Bob Dylan album.
No, my mom loves Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
so I've probably heard it many times, but
Right.
it really felt like that's what I mean by a spiritual experience. It felt like I was channeling something that I don't have as much control over as I did on Shepherdhead, which was like a really controlled experience for me. It was like, let me sit on the computer for a really long time and make an album. And this one was more like it just showed up. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to write about David and Eloise anymore. And then they were there. So
They tell you what to write.
like this is the music I was listening to before writing this album was this guy Derek Bailey,
Okay.
who is just like not, it just sounds like nonsense. Like if you had told me 5 years, if you had put on Derek Bailey for me 5 years ago, I would have been like, this sounds like nothing. This is turn this off immediately.
Right.
But for some reason, when I was on these like driving through LA to the next landscaping gig, I would put on Derek Bailey in traffic, and it would be the only thing that made sense to me. So yeah, and
Interesting.
there's not any words in that music. It's just
Yeah.
like a guitarist fucking splunking around.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess this is a question I like to ask people though. And I know you said that you haven't really been listening to much music at all, but is there anything else you've kind of been into right now?
Now I'm listening to a lot of music,
Okay.
like right now, because I'm at home and I'm with my wife and our daughter. And so we're just like trying not to watch a bunch of shit and be on our
Yeah.
phones all the time.
Right.
So I'm just like putting on records and bouncing a baby, you know, all day. And so, and to like get out of the house, I like go to a record store and pick up a record or
Oh,
two. And
nice.
so, yeah, lately, what did I, what was I listening? I've been listening to a lot of Bill Evans. Bill Evans is very enjoyable to listen to, and especially when you have like your in-laws at your house and you're trying to make things chill. Um, I listen to a lot of Thelonious Monk. I listen
Nice.
to Bedhead when it's just me and her, because my wife doesn't love the like sad, stark zone, but I think it's quite beautiful. Yeah, Bedhead, Talk Talk. I love
Nice.
the Blue Nile. It's a big hit. I got a bunch of um, soul and funk records right now. This one called, I think it's Black Ivory is the one I was listening to yesterday. The Politicians featuring McKinley Jackson and Inez Fox. And yeah, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm looking for like groove a little bit, like a kind of like gluey, deep groove.
So you're not going over the Kendrick and Drake beef with your newborn daughter.
I haven't yet, and I probably never will.
It's exhausting, man. That's it was cool for a hot minute, and now I'm like, let's just not anymore.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's, I don't know. I'm just, actually have no idea. I have no idea.
Honestly, maybe it's for the best. Yeah. Just at this point, let's just let's let it die down.
But I did see in LA once Kendrick Lamar and DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook all in the span of like 30 minutes
Incredible.
at a protest in Compton. Yeah, it
Oh,
was
wow.
amazing.
DeMar, I have mixed feelings about him as a Bulls fan.
Oh,
I don't, I guess kind of transitioning into that a little bit. That's a moment you talked about. I guess something I'm always curious about. Are there any moments where music and basketball have like overlapped in your life?
um, I think actually writing this record, I made a major transition as a basketball player.
Mm.
Uh, I started really digging into it, it was the first time I really started to understand playing defense. Like that it wasn't like playing defense wasn't about like getting a steal or having like the right stance.
Hmm.
I always thought it was all about your movement and like, and it is like but playing and like your like hand-eye coordination, playing defense is about like, can you give a shit more than anyone else? And are
Hustle.
you in really good shape? Like, and so I like I was saying, I was like landscaping, I was in like really good shape.
Mhm.
And so I was just like playing these pickup games on Saturdays with my friend Jordan and getting a lot of like joy and pleasure out of a thankless task, which is defense in a pickup game.
In
And
pickup, it's thankless, but in general, huge.
huge. And it gave me like such an appreciation for just like, that's what a really amazing team is all these people
Mhm.
caring immensely, and taking all these actions that don't have any like like specifically linear connection
Mhm.
to glory or victory or stats, but just engaging in like each movement makes a huge difference, and if everyone does it you win often.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like a major perspective change because I was always just like, yeah, I just need to like shoot well and like drive and it'll be good.
Well, it does. It kind of goes right in line with like what you were saying about watching that Kanye documentary. It's like just like caring,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing with you're writing music or you're playing defense. Like just give it all, and that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Care, believe in yourself. There was I'm reading this book about, oh, that's another thing I'm listening to a lot of that band Can, the German band
Hmm.
Can. And this book that I'm reading about them, they're talking about that if when they were really like grooving and amazing, they're all so deeply focused on their individual task that eventually in that focus they become this sort of like enmeshed whole, um, that blends into each other in this like incredible way. And that was like Young Jesus for a few records, but when we were
Mhm.
like super improvisational and had been playing a long time together. So yeah, I that's what a really good basketball team like the Spurs that beat the Heat that one year, and
Yeah.
the Nuggets are a little bit like that, and one could argue the Bulls back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I guess we will see with the Nuggets, and this year, but you're right. It's like they will find a way. Like
Yeah,
that's what they do because they
yeah.
improvise and they shift where they have to.
They don't even look that good right now, but it
They
seems
don't.
like
It's
yeah,
kind of crazy to see the Timberwolves stopping Jokic like that.
yeah.
But they are I believe they're literally playing right now. So
Oh, dang.
um so I guess moving more in that direction, you have actually written some articles formally about basketball.
Yeah,
Why don't
yeah.
you dive into that because it seems like you really hit on some nuanced topics that maybe most people aren't writing about.
Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts of. Let me see if I can turn this light on because it's getting dark here. Yeah, I mean, I was when I wrote those articles, I was working at a bookstore. I had so much free time to like trip out about basketball. Um, and I think they're interesting. Like I think it's interesting to think of basketball like not about like what's happening on a personal fan sense, but kind of like, okay, why are Marvel movies so popular or something, or why are so many shows about X subject?
Hmm.
So why are these types of teams winning now, or um like major trends? So for me, I was just thinking, what I was thinking about today was like, man, I watched that Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool, but it's also like, okay, Michael Jordan produced it basically,
One
and
perspective, yeah.
yeah, and the strange thing is, and I have been noticing this in a lot of like sports documentaries, no one ever says anything negative about the owners, like
And with the
about the
Bulls,
people.
there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like Jerry Krause gets a ton of shit,
Yeah.
and he's like the scapegoat, but no one says anything about Jerry Reinsdorf. Or like, I saw a little clip of the Patriots documentary, and it's like Bill Belichick gets a ton of shit, but no one says anything about Robert Kraft. He's like such a good guy and
Yeah.
hardworking American, and that to me is interesting that you
Yeah.
have everybody, especially when I was younger, like really arguing about the validity and the personality of these different players, and like vilifying certain people that you don't know, obviously. I mean, it's like celebrities. um but that, you know there's like really intense, like a crazy amount of money in this shit, and there's definitely messages being conveyed through the flow of that money. So I like posted once, I posted like a list of the top 5 wealthiest owners in the
Yeah.
NBA and what their companies were. And it was like Twitter on, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago when I was an idiot and thought that would be anything worthwhile. And just got destroyed. Like so many people were so angry. And I was like, this is interesting. This is really
Yeah.
interesting. This is what upsets people the most, is me like questioning the owners.
Mhm.
Not even, and not even in an intense way, just being like, what's going
Well,
on?
it feels like the same principle of, when someone like Bernie Sanders says they want to tax the rich, and then everyone who makes like 45K is like, "What? No."
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah. It's a really interesting, I mean, yeah. So there's something weird going on to
Yeah.
me. So I wrote like, I have like these different conspiracies. the thing that I'm interested in now, well, that you got me interested in from like talking about basketball. I like haven't been thinking much
Sure.
about this deep basketball zone. This morning, I was like, how has basketball changed lately? And what is the influence of um, Instagram and
Oh
TikTok
God,
and
huge.
yeah, and obviously like analytics are huge, but I was interested in specifically like what does the clip mean for basketball? And what did it mean? What does it mean for me? Because right now I can like look up the craziest highlights and it doesn't give me the same feeling
Yeah.
as basketball used to.
I think you can technically be pretty knowledgeable about the NBA today just through watching clips on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it is really interesting, but there are little things that you can only get by watching an entire game, an entire season.
Yeah.
Um, but I actually really do believe most people do not watch a lot of basketball games.
Yeah.
They just watch it through social media, which is it's pretty crazy. Um, but that is yeah, that is a huge element. I feel like honestly, even fans like through social media kind of control a player's legacy a little bit right now,
Yeah.
which is it's a strange world and how much that's changed, you know.
Yeah, like a crowd sourced image of a person and even even like the influence of video games,
Mhm.
on
Oh
I
yeah.
had I had the thought a year ago I was watching a basketball game. I was like, this could be a video game. Like I feel like I'm watching a video game. It was like flat earth style where I was like, I need to be there in person to believe this is
Is the NBA a
occurring.
simulation?
Like it's so crazy. And then I was reading this article this morning where this guy was talking about his Unreal gaming engine, the guy who like owns Epic Games or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think in my lifetime, computer graphics will be indistinguishable from reality. And I'm like, so interesting. Like, what's going on?
Right. I mean, we're already like not that like people do like YouTube channels where like I'm simming the entire season. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's you but people will go to that. It's there's a lot of avenues that it's all going, you know.
Also, it's just like it's so interesting to think of an NBA basketball player going home and playing 2K
But they
as them
do.
as themselves,
Yeah.
and that influencing how they might play in the future.
Hmm.
Like being like, oh, this is a possibility. Like I didn't realize that look was even possible for someone like me. I'm going to try to make that possible. And that's a, a computer algorithm, whatever is a
Yeah.
code influencing in the same way social, whatever computers influence our behavior on a daily basis. It's just this super interesting, strange feedback loop.
The form
So
of practice, I guess. Yeah.
100% in like yeah, so weird. So yeah, I like there are players now that maybe generate like really interesting individual clips, but might not be necessarily conducive to a great team.
Sure. And I guess this is also another a dark hole, but uh I feel I feel like a lot of in the world of content creation and TikTok and stuff, a lot of people will do things for the sake of the clip. Do
Yeah.
do you think potentially NBA players are doing things because it will be a clip?
Wow. That's really interesting. I think I think maybe that style of play is rewarded. Like,
Yeah.
um, like Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. He's like a
Mhm.
clip generating machine.
Yep.
Um, and I think the reason he is because he's had the ingenuity, whatever, to take a moves that people would think were too like risky, whatever,
Sure.
but he just does them. And
Yeah.
I wonder if that like breaking that barrier where it's like, oh, you shouldn't do that in a game, but then you do. And I don't know. I don't have a solid, I don't
No,
have
I mean that makes
solid,
sense because genuinely what people gravitate to towards is just good basketball. Anyways, I
yeah,
mean, right now I feel like the biggest clip getter is Anthony Edwards, and that's
yeah,
because he's just exciting to watch.
he's amazing. That's
Um,
true.
so
That's
yeah, some very interesting theories, and I do love that the way you think about basketball is also a little bit how you think about music. It's just like
I think they're the same. I
yeah.
honestly think music right now is the same as basketball right now. That that it's being funneled towards a specific experience,
Hmm.
and um it's being controlled by like somewhat non-human zones, or like we're not conscious enough of the ways in which it's being shaped by a web of data and analytics and information and fed to us in a way so that it can market a certain amount of like products and things. And
Right.
yeah,
I I've said this a few times already, but in the way that the NBA is kind of storytelling, I've always said that it's just like you're watching The Real Housewives, or
yeah,
you're just watching WWE wrestling.
100%.
Yeah.
Like
It's
it is.
it's the storylines, it's the characters, like, and people will say it's scripted. It's obviously not scripted, but the way life scripts itself out, it does feel like you naturally have these storylines, people rising to the top, people falling,
Yeah.
and you have good guys, you have bad guys. It's just all content, air quotes, is
Yeah,
storytelling.
and what's the difference between a script and not a script in
Yeah.
something like reality TV? Like there's still the influence of like the incentives are to have an interesting story.
Producers, and yeah. I want to imagine if every NBA game had like producers.
Be amazing. Oh my
Can we redo the third quarter real quick? I
God.
just think there's something better we can do.
I bet it's happened, man. I
Oh
guarantee
yeah, someone's pitched it, but we're not ready yet.
we're not ready yet. Oh my goodness.
um, Crazy. Have you been paying
Oh,
attention
one,
to this?
can I just mention one harmless conspiracy theory I have?
Love it. Yes.
That they moved the Lakers from Minnesota to LA to make people think of water in Los Angeles when we're to promote real estate value when we're actually like in a drought and it should be like not as valuable.
That's it. That's okay. That's a wild one, especially because they moved many decades ago. But I feel like drought was still an issue then.
There's always been water issues in
Yeah,
LA.
absolutely.
Chinatown. Have you seen Chinatown?
I feel like it's kind of the adjacent conspiracy theory of
Yeah.
Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelsey when they were playing the Jets, so that when people searched Taylor Swift Jets, it wasn't her private jet consumption, it was the game.
Oh my God.
Right? Doesn't it make just too much
Love,
sense?
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh.
It's just more fun to think like this.
It really is sometimes.
And sometimes it can lead you down a
Sometimes.
terrifying rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh. If you heard some of the things I've talked about at landscaping jobs,
Yeah, right. Um, are you following this year's playoffs at all?
yes, yes. Like I did not watch the Bulls playing games. The playing games did not inspire me.
Are you a Bulls fan?
Yes,
Great.
like
Love to
I've
hear it.
tried. Yeah, I've tried not to be forever, but I
I
tried to
think
run it up.
you talked about ownership, and
Yeah,
Reinsdorf, a sore subject for many Bulls fans.
yeah,
Me personally, I feel like this upcoming season is the year we really have to do like a sell the team campaign.
yeah. I think so. Wow, I hadn't even heard that. I hadn't thought of that. Very interesting.
There was as much as I hate Barstool Sports, there's a guy on there, Big Cat, who brought up a good point that mathematically the Bulls over the past 10 years have been like 41 and 41, and like that's all by design,
Yeah.
and
Oh
just
my
because
gosh. Do you
they're
think
number one in attendance once again this year.
do you think that that was a fixed draft that sent Derrick
Uh,
Rose to the Bulls?
I love the fixed draft theory in general.
Yeah.
I remember when the Cavs got Kyrie, and Bill
Yes.
Simmons on air was like, "It's rigged."
Yeah.
um, you know, it's eh, I guess what's the reason? Is it, hey, major market, it's been a while since Michael Jordan was here. You guys are due, right? Is that what
Derrick
it
Rose
is?
from Chicago.
Yeah, we need that story. I, it's certainly possible they had a
Yeah.
what 0.8% chance of getting him.
Yeah.
It's and I'll take that rig because
I'll take
I,
it. It
I
was
cherish those
amazing.
years. I
Oh my
cherish those
God.
years so much.
That's tears. Some of the best.
That was probably, I'm always pretty active in basketball, but that was like my peak of when I was most interested in the Bulls. I like watching all
Incredible. So
basketball now.
fun.
I'm not really, I mean, I'm a Bulls fan, but like I equally enjoy watching especially playoff basketball. So,
Yeah.
um, but you didn't watch the play-in game for them, which
Didn't
you
watch
didn't
the
miss
playing
much.
games. I know, like I watched a little bit of a Nuggets game, saw them beat the Lakers. I've seen some Timberwolves
Mhm.
situations.
Sixers Knicks was a
They
little
look
feisty.
Sixers Knicks. Yeah, I like Jalen Brunson. I think he's
Yeah.
cool. Um, I mean, I love Tibbs. I will always love Tom Thibodeau. Is Taj Gibson still on that team? I don't know, but
No, he's not.
okay, bummer.
He
Um,
is. I did see he's actually one of the five oldest active players right now, though.
wow. Oh my
Crazy.
gosh. Oh, Taj.
It's great.
Yeah. I Something about it is not exciting to me right now. Like it doesn't move me. I did aesthetically enjoy the Nuggets last year as like a
Yeah.
passing experience, and I liked like the Warriors losing. I don't, I don't know. Why do I have a grudge against like I don't know. There's no reason. Yeah, they won a
Because
lot.
I've seen you win. Let's give
Yeah,
someone else a chance.
yeah. So yeah, that was satisfying for sure. And I love Jamal Murray's layups. I think they're like
Hmm.
the most beautiful layups in the NBA. Love Aaron Gordon. I like Tyrese Halliburton, and
Yeah. It's kind of a bummer. He was looking like MVP caliber this first half, and then he got hurt, and he never was like he was in the first half. But they made it to the second round, so we'll
I
see if
feel
he
very
picks it up.
sad. I feel very sad for the was it Monty Williams who coached the Suns last year and then got booted to the Pistons,
And oh my God, that
and
Pistons team.
the Suns are bad.
Yeah. So clearly
It's
it
not
wasn't
like they
him, but I will say I can't say it wasn't him because I do not think he coached the Pistons well at all.
yeah. I just felt kind
But
of bad for him. He seems like a sweet guy when I
he
just like
does.
feel for him. I'm just like, oh, I like you.
It just becomes more clear and clear every time that like KD is really tough to coach or
Yeah.
have as a part of a larger team.
Yeah. Who knows what's going on with KD? I think he's just an emotional being,
Yeah, aren't we all?
like all of us. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any I know you haven't watched much, but do you have any kind of who you're pulling for, I guess, in this playoffs?
Who am I pulling for? Who do I think? Let me just look and see right now.
So we have left. We have
Yeah, tell
the
me who's left.
Magic. We have the oh no, Magic
No,
Island.
the Cavs
We have
won.
Cavs. We have the Pacers. We have the
Yes.
Knicks, and we have Boston.
Yeah.
And then in the West, we have Minnesota. Um, God, why am I blanking on everyone in the West? Dallas.
Yeah.
Why am I blanking on the West?
And a bunch of in Denver.
Denver, of course. And who are the Mavs playing? I, my brain is just rotting in front as we speak. The Thunder, the very young
Oh
Oklahoma
my
City
gosh.
Thunder.
Yeah, I think the Thunder are cool.
Yeah,
I would love to see the Thunder in the finals.
I'd love to see Timberwolves in the finals.
That would be cool. All the West teams are cool. They're
Sure.
interesting. I don't even like Dallas, but I like Kyrie and Luca and like a weird.
That duo is very interesting.
I mean, Kyrie is just like the most poetic basketball player who's ever lived,
Yeah.
maybe. Like just in terms of like motion
Mhm.
and poetry of movement. Um, but
The East is it's hard to root for anyone in there.
yeah, I mean the Celtics are evil. Um, the
The
Knicks,
Pacers are don't really deserve it. I don't think. I don't think they're good enough to really get it.
no.
And the Knicks are gonna Knicks, you know.
Well, the Knicks are supposed. The whole point of the Knicks is to keep people obsessed. The Knicks will always have a fan base, and the reason part of the my conspiracy with the Knicks is the Knicks always have to be worse than the Celtics, where Boston is a smaller city that generates way less basketball players. New York is the basketball mecca of the US. So it'll always have people going to games
Mhm.
and obsessing over the basketball players there. Whereas Boston won't have that unless they're good all the time or like interesting. Um, and so you just like feed off that and just have them lose and always frustrate the people because you know they'll always come back, you know?
That's the Reinsdorf effect.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that is like some weird rigging going on.
Well, I do you we'll find out. Do you think the well, if the NBA is truly rigged, does the NBA certainly would want a Boston New York conference finals, right?
Yeah,
Get
we'll
the
find out.
legacy
I mean, that will
matchup.
be the proof in the pudding. If it
It's
happens, then it
confirmed.
is.
Blink twice if it's true.
Well, okay. See, I always come up with these theories and then it never works out like
Yeah.
that.
It's like the people who say the end of the world's coming and they're like, no. It's 2 years later.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, we're going off a different calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my bad.
Yes.
uh
But yeah, I
so
mean, that would be something if the
yeah,
Celtics and the Knicks played and the Knicks lost. That would be crazy. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Once I saw Bill
happen.
Bradley in a deli in New York, speaking of the Knicks, last time they won a championship. If anyone's ever read Sense of Where You Are, great book about basketball written by Bill Bradley.
There we go.
Yeah, deep cut.
We'll see what happens. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll see. Um, but one thing I do like to do is like a little game, if you will, and it's called Build a Band.
yeah.
So the idea is see what you can come up with, make a band out of NBA players. Doesn't matter how many uh, instruments you got, but
Okay.
who you got? What are they playing? What are they sounding like?
I mean, I, I mean, I kind of want to go with my era, my favorite, Bulls era, which is like
Mhm.
Joe Kim on drums, I think, Luol Deng on bass. Um,
John Salmon's on the saxophone.
oh my gosh, John Salmons. Man, we could get Ron Mercer in there.
There you go.
We could get Dickie Simpkins, if we're going the dark ages.
I
I
used to
mean,
see.
I loved the Eddie Curry,
Oh
Tyson
yeah,
Chandler, Kirk Heinrich, uh,
Heinrich. Heinrich was that guy, yeah.
Chris Duhon, um,
CJ Watson.
CJ Watson, like that, Nate Robinson, amazing era. Um, I've loved every era. You know, I have a lot of love for all the Bulls eras for some
Yeah.
reason. Like I
I've
really
never
love.
fallen in love with this current Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan era. I was intrigued that first year when like
Oh my God.
Lonzo was healthy, Caruso was healthy.
Dude, I went to the Bulls Clippers game in LA and I was sitting next to all these Clippers fans and the Bulls dominated
Yeah.
and they were all, it was like one of the few games they were all healthy and all playing. And like this guy I was talking to the whole game, he's just like, you guys have a team. Like this is a team. Like
Yeah.
you are lucky. And I was like, yeah, this is
And
amazing.
then clearly Lonzo was the magic factor.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
yeah,
okay,
a band of Bulls, like, you know, what would they sound like? I mean, that was such a cool team. That was a punk team because that was the era of the Spurs were like improvisational jazz
mhm,
zone. Like they were a fully communicating, flowing, um, like international, many influences coming together for a cohesive
yeah. I feel like
whole.
you were also approaching the Miami Heat super team, major label
Yes.
conglomerate of a team.
Yeah. They were like, I don't know, like in sync or something. And they're good. Like in sync is
Sure,
awesome. Like
sure,
great songs. They can pull it off really well. Uh,
absolutely. They
but
sell records.
sell records, not a lot of shelf life, can't go on forever. Um, as a group. A few can have long solo
Hmm.
careers. Um, but yeah, the Bulls were punks. The Bulls were like a punk
Totally.
rock band kind of. So yeah, I feel like Joakim would be like fucking driving the beat and like pushing the tempo the entire time.
Absolutely.
Um, Luol is just like a very solid bass player for
Hmm.
sure. Just like he accountable and loves the drummer and um but also it's hard to say because D Rose would not be a lead singer
No, he's too shy.
and he wouldn't be a lead guitarist.
I could see a lead guitarist. He'll do like like a really nice solo, but act like it's not a big deal.
Yeah. I could see him I could see him and Joe, like Derrick Rose being a rhythm guitarist
Hmm.
and like really an amazing rhythm guitarist, like
Sure.
really deep groove zone in a punk band because it's like
Right.
we're talking like
Yeah.
super fast
Palm
tempo,
muting nonstop. Yeah.
just like in it, full of yeah, but like deadpan, just
Yeah.
looking at the drummer the whole time, just like we got this, and the drummer just so happy. And um, who would sing in that group though? You had Joe and
I mean, I don't think Ben Gordon's going for the vocals there.
John
Um,
Salmons,
I mean, Kirk Heinrich,
Taj,
maybe.
Heinrich, man,
Heinrich does kind of have the look of like a punk frontman, maybe.
a little bit. Oh my goodness, Nate Robinson would be the lead singer.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah,
definitely to the end of that era. It's the end of the Rose era for sure.
yeah, but
But
he'd be a
I
great
mean,
lead singer.
there's Jimmy.
Oh my gosh, Jimmy is a lead singer.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, he's a country guy, but like, before he
Jimmy
got into
is
country, he was into punk. Let's just say that.
But Jimmy is an iconoclast. Like
Yeah.
Jimmy is strange. He gives weird interviews. He's kind of mean. He has all these different business ideas.
He did the emo thing on
He
Media
did the
Day.
emo thing. He's like, he really has a ton of self-confidence. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, my goodness, he's like an amazing lead singer.
And I kind of like earlier you said Band of Bulls. That's like the alternative to Band of Horses.
Band of Bulls. Yeah. Or we do
Sure.
like, I mean, I also like a Bulls band where it's like, I just like huge people holding guitars because they look so small, like Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry both
Yeah.
playing guitar. That'd be cool.
Poor Michael Sweetney. Maybe
Oh my God, I loved Michael Sweetney. I
pure at
loved.
heart, it's a shame that he just couldn't keep the weight off,
He had a very good season though.
He did.
He had one very solid season.
Eddie Curry too, another big boy on the Bulls. Yeah.
I love those guys.
And because they're Eddie Curry was a local suburban high school star too.
He was, yes. Ben Gordon, loved Ben Gordon. One of a friend of a friend hooked up with him, I believe. That was very exciting back in the day.
My brother always tells me he and his friend had they found his AOL Instant Messenger screen name,
Yeah.
and he would always have the weirdest away messages up. Like it would just say like I am fly.
He is fly.
Yeah. Or they always say to each other this phrase that another one of them was Hmeh, HMEH. Hmeh. Okay.
I found Max Bemis's AIM say anything when I was a 15-year-old. Send him a lot of
Oh yeah.
messages. Yeah.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great, chatting conspiracy theories in the NBA with you.
Yes, my pleasure. Anytime. I love it.
It's been great. It's also been I'm excited to, check out the new Young Jesus album out May 24th.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.